You can only push someone so far before they snap, basically. In a country, if they're being oppressed too far, but this country is so divided. I just don't think everyone's in enough of a consensus to do anything.
If we do need consensus, how can each of us build consensus on a daily basis?
Now let me turn to the panel one last time for their last final comment.
We consistently support leaders who promote the same kinds of public policies. And if we start looking outside of our two-party system and taking alternatives, we might be able to deal with that. The other side is that we support the corporations. And I think that we do have power, and I think we ought to exercise that power as much as we can.
Brian?
Agreeing with what he just said, we support the corporations, which I feel is really the problem with our government right now, the connection between corporation and government, and corporations trying to monopolize themselves. And if we don't support these corporations and we don't fund them with our money, then they can't act. And so it's up to the American people to voice themselves and come together as one. Don't feel soloed out, but come together as one and voice your opinion against these companies.
Professor Skences.
In 2003, build up to the Iraq War, Americans shown footage of Donald Rumsfeld shaking hands with Saddam in the 80s, shocked audiences. So I think critical thinking and education are the key to looking deeper at these relationships.
The only way that anything can actually happen is if we don't allow these corporations to continue to have buddies in government and have as much power as they do, because we should have the power, because we do have the power.
Education is the answer. I mean, and granted, there is a certain responsibility that each American as a citizen has in letting this kind of situation perpetuate itself. We do support these corporations. However, the media, in terms of presenting the two people that we have a choice of electing, I mean, there were many more than two people and many more who could have possibly done a wider variety of change than either of our two current candidates.
I think we need to realize that we are in a global world, and it's very hard for companies or countries not to interact with each other from this point forward. But we should be aware of the idea of something called fair trade, where companies and countries don't act in a parasitic manner toward other countries, and just proceed forward with the possibility that we might be able to conduct business that would benefit all nations without one coming out on top and the other in the dregs of humanity.
My view is that we have to pursue peace, economic development through peace efforts. And I know that that probably sounds far-reaching at this point, but I do believe that it's possible because of globalization. We are so connected with other countries, profoundly more than we ever have been, and we are going to continue to be connected to those countries. There are resources in our country, and there are resources in other countries that we need and that they need. And if we can work together effectively through a stronger UN, perhaps there is an opportunity for us to see at least some level of peace and less of covert actions and war in this country and around the world.
Looking over the book, we have to get off of short-term goals. If you look the first 100 years of U.S. history, U.S. fought off countries. The second 100 years of U.S. history, America fought over countries. And I guess we have to ask ourselves, where are we going to go for the third 100 years?
It's more than obvious that we have lost sight of the fact that at some point, morals have to play a role in the way we conduct ourselves, both at home and overseas. We need to try to start discussing ways in which we can separate human rights from politics and economics. And we, at some point, also have to try to understand that society must not be based strictly around profit. At some point, we have to base it around true human values and respect for life. It's such a shame to know that I can sit here in this suit and look at all these people and know that I'm going to school and I get one of the best educations you can get in the entire world, and it comes at the price of somebody starving to death.
I think American people need to look at things with more nuance. They need to look at foreign leaders and not just accept what's spoon-fed to them. You know, this person is evil, this person is good. We need to see this is much more complex and put ourselves in their shoes. Try to imagine what it must be like to be a much smaller country facing us.
As American people, we have to, if we want to see change, we have to educate ourselves and make the change happen. we can't just sit back and feign ignorance that we don't know these things are happening when they are. You have to go out there, you have to read, you have to watch TV, talk to people from other countries, find out what it's really like there. And I think that that's the only way change is going to happen.
What we have to do is we have to re-educate people. We have, as I mentioned before, we have to start with the young kids at the elementary level. We have to teach them ethics and morality. I'm glad I had that written down in my notes. So this is what we have to start. So when our children are running corporations, are in government, in whatever fields they go into, whether it's medicine or the whole spectrum, that they have that morality and those ethics. And I think we have to do more to instill it in them than just preach it to them.
Before reading Stephen Kinzer's Overthrow, I was completely ignorant to all of this information. And I think many people in America are the same way. And you and I and everybody else in this room need to get involved. We need to stop making the government work for these corporations. The government needs to start working for the people. And that has to start with us.
Professor Gardner.
This is a very important time, and I think at this point now, we all know better, so therefore we should do better, as my mother always says. Otherwise, I just leave with you 5 words. I think we've, heard all this. It's 5 words I have. Otherwise, if we don't understand what we've done, we will reap what we sow. That's the bottom line.
When I was in the back reading the paper today, I turned to a page that was disturbing. They were comparing Chicago students in 8th grade math scores to third world countries. When we begin to see something like that, it becomes a little mind-boggling. So I believe we need to press for a higher appreciation for education.
I want to take this moment to thank the panel for a thoroughly wonderful.
I've often felt that it's not right for any one country to have the right to make such a huge decision, such as the regime in country X is so evil that it must be crushed. That's a decision that's so profound, it should be made by a community of nations. But it's even worse if that one country that's making the decision is not making it as a country, but it's really just a half a dozen guys sitting around a table with their feet up on the desk.
I say essentially that there are really just a few basic things we have to do. We have to avoid simplicity, avoid engaging in foreign policy activities because we can, because we have the muscle to do it. And we have to listen better. We have to find a way to actually listen to other voices in the world.
America can be a beacon in the world. And this, I think, was the original idea of the first settlers here. When John Winthrop said that America should be as a city upon a hill, what he meant, as he explained in his other writings, was that we should build the best society we possibly can.
Overthrow is that part of our past, but that past that has a reality that we must acknowledge and we must address. And that is what we must study. Why must we study it? We must study it so that we can ensure that going forward, that we do not go down that path again.
We are at a crossroads. Our entire systemic and value system is changing. We need to take hold of that which we can and become responsible for ourselves. And in that process, effect change. Thank you.